Hi everyone, my name is Vic. I'm the current chair of the Parish Council. Very proud to be a parish councillor, as all of our councillors in the village are. We do all live in the village, and we are all volunteers, so we do this because we want to make our village the best that it can be. Can be a really tricky task, and I think it's worth saying that as a parish council, we possibly don't have as much sway and power as you might think. We're probably more like a maintenance committee at times. As our main responsibilities are things like maintaining the cemeteries, things like trees on public land, playgrounds, etc. We do have some wonderful spaces in the village, obviously, and assets such as the village hall, the recreational ground, Convent Meadow, but obviously those spaces and any improvements cost a lot of money, and the only money that we get in as a parish council is the precept, which comes from your council tax. We do also get grants that we apply for, and occasionally we get money from development in the village. That money from the developers does come with a lot of caveats, so it quite often has to be spent in a certain place, for example, the recreational ground, or on something in particular. So for new equipment, we can't use it very often on maintenance of existing things. It has to meet a lot of requirements before we're allowed to withdraw it. So, for example, at the moment we have lots of plans in place for improvements to the pavilion and the rec. We've got a planning application in for a mugger court, which is like a multi-use games arena. So basketball, target boards, that sort of thing, which will replace the current basketball hoop. But before we can even get the money from the developers for that, we have to have proof that that planning application is okay and will go through. So there's lots and lots of hoops that we have to jump through before we can even withdraw money when we do get it from developers. But yeah, lots of exciting things on the horizon, particularly for the young people in the village. We're looking to get quotes at the moment for a public consultation for a new bike track. Yeah, lots going on. So have a look at our new website and find lots of more information on there. Don't forget, obviously, you can see us at Cameo. So we go to Cameo Cafe on the last Friday of every month, and we go to Roast and Radish on the last Saturday of every month. And those were put in place so that you could have a bit more of an informal chat with us rather than having to come to a formal meeting, which are a little bit trickier for us to chat at, if that makes sense. So our formal monthly meetings are on the first Wednesday of every month, and they are at the back of the Methodist Hall where the Cameo Cafe is. We are very much the more the merrier. It's lovely to see people at our drop-ins and at our monthly meetings. We really do want to become more of an open and transparent council so that the village can sort of really understand what we do. So you'll have noticed more things popping up on Facebook, for example. We're very lucky that the lovely Cheryl from the Stoker has been writing up our minutes for us in a more accessible fashion for the Stoker magazine. And then more recently, our wonderful Clark has taken over doing that with a quick roundup of headlines. So we're trying to make everything a bit more accessible. And to that end, one suggestion has been to use social media to do videos. So unfortunately, you've drawn the short straw with me for the next 5 minutes or so for our first attempt at this. Okay, so today's video, in light of kind of recent events, I wanted to just talk a little bit about development, about our neighbourhood plan, about how to object, and more importantly, about the recent application for the 19 dwellings behind the high street. So today's video, starting off with what is a neighbourhood plan. So the neighbourhood plan is a community-led legal document that gives local people real statutory influence over the future of places like our village, like Stoke Goldham. So we're very lucky that our neighbourhood plan is on its second iteration already. I say we're very lucky because some villages, some parishes haven't even done their first one, and we're already on our newest version that went through in May 2024. So we're really lucky that we've got a brilliant group of volunteers that worked on that neighbourhood plan for us. They even got an award for doing so. So our neighbourhood plan advisory committee won the Making a Difference award for protecting our community environment. And it was so many hours of work, so many hours that those volunteers gave up to help produce that plan so that we can protect and try and shape development of our village. So our plan, you can find it on our website. If anybody would like a hard copy of the plan, let us know and we can print it off and we can get that out to you. That's absolutely fine. But basically, in a nutshell, the Stoke Golding Neighbourhood Plan, it uses specific policies to try and protect and shape any development that happens in the village. So it defines things like a really tight settlement boundary to try and control sprawl. It designates local green spaces for protection. And it does things like sets quite high standards for design policy. So that's what any development would look like to make sure that it would respect the village's historic character. It's really important to understand, though, that the neighbourhood plan is to shape development. We cannot block it. We have to, unfortunately, have development in our village. That's not our choice. But our best weapon is the neighbourhood plan in terms of having an influence on how that development is shaped and how it happens. So, as is very pertinent at the moment, what happens if you think an application lands that violates the plan? So you obviously have the right to object to any applications. The Stoke Golding Neighbourhood Plan is your strongest tool for objecting to an application. So the first thing you need to do is find its reference number, which quite handily will be on our website as well. So if you go onto the Parish Council website, we have put a link straight to the Hinckley and Bosworth Borough Council portal. So you should be able to find on there all applications that relate to anything within our settlement boundary. Sometimes quite close by applications come up as well, so you can see those, but it's really easy to find. Go onto our website, find the application that you are wanting to look at or that you want to make an objection to. The next really important thing is to base your objection on policy. So that's called material planning considerations. And I'll talk you through that in a minute about how you do that. Then you submit it online to Hinckley and Bosworth Borough Council. And if you would like to, it would be great if you could send us a copy of what you've sent. That would be really good. It's really, really important that I want everybody in the village to understand that crucially, legally, the planning authority treats our parish council's objection as a single comment. So even though we have a number of councillors and we will take into account a number of views when we write our comments, it still just counts legally as a single comment. The council above us, so the borough council, doesn't give it any more inherent weight than a letter from a member of the public. Okay, it's all about the quality and the relevance of the argument, not who it comes from. So that means that your individual objection is absolutely vital. And if you are able to submit a robust argument that's based on neighbourhood plan policy, that holds just as much importance as the parish council's formal response. So we represent you as a parish council, but it's absolutely vital that you make your voice personally heard because it carries the same weight. Okay, it's quality and quantity. So the neighbourhood plan gives you the policies. Your personal objection gives those policies power. So learn the policies, find the application, and when you do submit your objection, make sure you use the plan. Okay. So this is what it looks like on our website. This is how you could go into the planning portal. So what would you do? You'd find an application such as the one that I'm going to talk about today, which is the land to the rear of Springbank on High Street and the proposal for 19 dwellings. So this is our overall statement, which we have sent in as a parish council. Stoke Golding strongly opposes this application for 19 dwelling development in open countryside adjacent to the village. Stoke Golding's neighbourhood plan was made last year and it sets out the development plans and housing allocations. This application is for a site not allocated in the plan, nor is it an infill development within the settlement boundary. The application therefore has no basis for support and should be refused. So you can see very clearly what our stance as a parish council is on this. It it basically ignores a lot of our neighbourhood plan. It's not infill, it's not within the settlement boundary, and it's not a site that we have allocated for development. So the next comment that we've added to our objection is about the fact that we are basing our refusal to accept this because we have this up-to-date neighbourhood plan. It was only made in May last year, and in that plan it contains a housing allocation and is in general conformity with the strategic policies of the Hinckley and Bosworth local plan. So Hinckley and Bosworth have their own local plan that sets out housing allocations, and we have taken that into account in our neighbourhood plan. So our neighbourhood plan forms part of the development plan for the borough. We're basically saying that our neighbourhood plan is perfectly in line with Hinckley and Bosworth's local plan. There is absolutely no reason for you to ignore it. Now, as part of the application, the planning statement by Framptons, who are the agents acting on behalf of Cartwright Homes, they've only made very brief reference to the neighbourhood plan, and they haven't taken any notice of the policies within the plan. So this is the really important bit. When you're making your basis for a refusal, what is best to do, what gives you the most power, is to base it on the neighbourhood plan and really, really carefully explain which policies in the neighbourhood plan it's in contradiction of. Okay, so for example, we have said that this planning application is contrary to the following policies. The first one being policy SG2, which is the housing requirement, and in our plan it explains how that requirement will be met. This is by a combination of already committed developments, and in an allocated site and a few infill dwellings, the most of which have already been allocated. We have not any need for 19 homes that are not part of the plan. We've already set out how we're going to meet the requirements for housing development in our village. Policy that it's in contrary to is policy SG4. So SG4 talks about what's permitted as infill housing. So that's when you have one or two houses that pop up within an estate that's already there, within a road that's already there. So Frampton's planning statement, paragraph 4.55, acknowledges that the proposed site is outside the defined settlement boundary, resulting in some encroachment into open countryside. So it's not considered infill development, is what we're saying. So if Framptons are saying we can get away with this application because it's infill, we have proven there that it's not classed as infill. The next policy that it contravenes is policy SG7, which is protection of the open countryside. This protects the open countryside while allowing 7 circumstances where development would be permitted. We've been through those 7 circumstances, and the application by Framptons is not covered by any of those. Therefore, it contravenes this countryside policy. And it also contravenes policy SG11, which is locally important views. So this part of the policy protects views of open landscape with particular sensitivity for 5 locally important views that are regarded as highly characteristic. So if you think about the vista from that end of the village, sloping down to the canal, looking up to the church, that is one of those views. This application proposes a development in the centre of one of these views from Stoke Lane looking up towards Stoke Golding. So it's contravened another policy there. In addition to those policies that it's contravened, it also is seeking to develop within the Stoke Golding conservation area, which raises further conservation issues. So the final part of our objection is based on the points around the 5-year housing supply. So basically, our local government need to plan how many new houses they are going to build over the next 5 years. This rule is set out in something called the NPPF, which are the national planning rules. And they say that a council must show that they have enough land lined up to build houses for the next 5 full years. So Framptons, the developers, are claiming that the council only has enough land for about 3.5 to 3.9 years of houses. So they're saying that there is a housing shortfall. They're arguing basically that because the council is short on its 5-year target, they are going to invoke a special rule, which is paragraph 11D, and that kicks in, which basically says if the council is failing its target, it's easier to get planning permission even on land not planned for housing. So it's very worrying that we're in this position because the council that have not met their targets basically. But the good news is that just because the council is short on its 5-year supply, it doesn't automatically mean the developer gets to build, especially not when we have the power of our local plan. So the basic rule, paragraph 12, the national rules say that the local plan is the starting point for all decisions. If a development goes against our neighbourhood plan, it should not usually be approved. Now, sadly, we know that this has happened in the past where there have been elements of our neighbourhood plan that we feel developers have not taken into account. But usually our neighbourhood plan is the starting point for all decisions. So we're very lucky to have it. And this application goes against contravenes so many of our policies. So it's quite a strong objection that we are putting in. Our neighbourhood plan is new, it's official, it's up to date, it shows where we do and don't want housing. Like I say, we can't use it to block development completely, but we can use it to try and shape it. So since this application conflicts with our plan, we're saying to the council here that the answer should be no. And finally, just to explain this part of our objection, this is kind of like our final safeguard. So paragraph 14, this rule provides a special extra layer of protection for villages like ours that have a new neighbourhood plan. So this safeguard applies if two things are true. If it's new and if it's fair. Our plan is new. It became part of the local rules less than 5 years ago. And it's fair because it has been properly planned for and we have allocated the number of houses which we need. Okay, so in conclusion, because our plan meets both conditions, the national rules say that allowing a development that conflicts with our neighbourhood plan is likely to cause significantly more harm, that adverse impact, to our village than any benefit that it brings. Okay, so in short, the developer is basically trying to use a national housing shortage rule to justify building here. However, because we've got a strong, up-to-date neighbourhood plan, it's meant to protect us, and the national rules agree with that. So hopefully, in theory, our neighbourhood plan should take priority. And in our objection, we've very clearly stated that the harm from this development is likely to outweigh any benefits. Okay, so what I would urge you to do is when you're putting your objections in, make sure that you are putting in objections which are based on policy from the neighbourhood plan. That's what makes it a robust objection. The other thing I would do is tell everyone to put one in, okay, because it's quantity and quality. As I said earlier, our voice as a parish council still only counts as one comment. Okay, so we really do need everybody that is opposed to this development to get their objections in and to make sure that they are quality objections. Okay, I'll just finish on this last slide, which just reminds you of our details. So that's our website, stokegoldingparishcouncil.gov.uk. You can contact us through our clerk, which is clerk@stokegoldingparishcouncil.gov.uk. You can give her a ring in working hours, which is 0739 844 8436. Okay. Of course, we would love to see you as well, so please think about coming to our drop-ins. We've tried to do them so that there's one in the week on a Friday and there's one on a Saturday for those of you that might work during the week, and then there's also our full council meeting, which is in the evening. So we've really tried to make ourselves as accessible as possible. Do get in touch, as I say, if you would like a hard copy of the neighbourhood plan or if you have any questions. But hopefully this has been helpful and useful in explaining what our neighbourhood plan is and how it can be used in this instance. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.